𝚑𝚑𝚎𝚎. Welcome, interstellar travelers, to a world where history and myth collide, where secrets whispered through stone, story, and stars may have been waiting for centuries to be heard. Today, we ask a question that lingers at the edge of memory. What if the knowledge the Knights Templar sought wasn't from Atlantis? What if it came from civilizations older than any we've imagined? Civilizations whose messages survived floods, empires, and the quiet passage of time, hidden in symbols, geometry, and story. For centuries, Atlantis has captured our imagination, the sunken city, the lost wisdom, the hub of impossible technologies. Perhaps Atlantis isn't a place at all. Perhaps it's a shadow of something far older. Maybe it's in the collective memory of humankind. The Knights Templar emerged in the early 12th century, in 1119, during the aftermath of the First Crusade. A small group of French knights, led by Hugues de Payens, pledged to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem, where the Holy Land was rife with danger and unrest. They lived as warrior monks, a strange blend of monastic devotion and military discipline, which drew attention across Europe. Official recognition came in 1129 at the Council of Troyes, where the Church granted them a formal rule and papal endorsement. Their role allowed them access to the most sacred and restricted sites in Jerusalem and across the Crusader states, from the Temple Mount to ancient ruins and tombs believed to hold sacred relics. They became the guardians of what some chroniclers describe as holy treasures, and their wealth and influence grew rapidly as kings and nobles donated land, castles, and money to support their mission. Templars were not just soldiers, they were also administrators, builders, and scholars. They created one of the first proto-banking systems in Europe, which allowed them to move resources safely across vast distances. Their monasteries became centers of study, and their travels took them into regions steeped in ancient mystery, Syria, Egypt, and the Levant, where civilizations far older than Christendom had once thrived. The rapid rise of the Templars created suspicion. Rumors began to swirl, accusations of secret rituals, initiation ceremonies, and hidden knowledge. Many contemporaries and later chroniclers hinted that the Templars possessed texts and relics no ordinary monk or knight would ever see. Some claimed they found scrolls written in unknown languages or ancient symbols, perhaps remnants of Egyptian, Phoenician, or even Mesopotamian civilizations. Templars themselves, in the official records, admitted to holding relics and sacred objects. Among the most famous is the Shroud of Saint Anne, a supposed piece of the true cross, and other artifacts they described as instruments of divine power or testimony to faith. While the Church never detailed the content of these objects publicly, the fact that the Templars guarded them fiercely, even under torture and threat of execution, suggests they understood their significance went beyond mere religious devotion. Beyond these sacred relics, the Templars traveled extensively through regions that had been the crossroads of ancient civilizations. Syria, Egypt, and Phoenicia had long been repositories of knowledge. Astronomical charts, sacred geometry, early mathematics, and codified myths about the cosmos and humanity's place in it. Chroniclers like Jacques de Molay hint that Templars brought back knowledge encoded in symbols, temple architecture, and writings, though much of this was kept secret. Templars were also some of the first Europeans to study architecture and geometry with precision. Their castles, chapels, and fortresses often contain mysterious carvings, geometric patterns, and layouts aligned with celestial points. While they publicly admitted to being skilled builders, historians have noted subtle alignments in their constructions that suggest a deeper understanding of astronomy and sacred geometry. Could these have been remnants of knowledge passed down from civilizations far older than Christendom? Some scholars suggest that the Templars may have had access to libraries in Jerusalem that included texts from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Phoenicia, knowledge that could explain their unparalleled skill in architecture, navigation, and strategy. Whatever they found, they documented it cautiously, often in codes, symbols, or secret manuscripts that remain lost or hidden to this day. And so we must wonder, what secrets were so profound, so potent, that an entire order would risk excommunication, torture, and death to preserve them? What knowledge lay hidden in the stones they touched, the scrolls they guarded, and the temples they studied, knowledge that kings and popes trembled to confront, and perhaps most haunting of all, what pieces of this ancient wisdom are still waiting for us to uncover? Atlantis first emerges in the writings of Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BCE. According to him, it was a powerful civilization, existing some 9,000 years before his time, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the straits we now call Gibraltar. Plato describes a great island, rich and vibrant, whose people became proud, and whose hubris led to its sudden disappearance beneath the waves. But here's the curious part. Plato himself credits Egyptian priests as his source. They told Solon, the Athenian lawmaker, stories of civilizations so ancient that even the memory of them stretched into the dawn of human knowledge. Whether fact, allegory, or moral lesson, these accounts suggest that Atlantis may have been more than a story, a vessel carrying wisdom from civilizations far older than Greece itself. Some scholars argue that Atlantis was never a literal city, but a container for memory, for knowledge preserved in allegory, myth, and symbols. Its descriptions of advanced architecture, complex society, and astronomical understanding mirror the kinds of wisdom the Templars later pursued: geometry, sacred structures, celestial observation, and encoded history. The Templars may not have been hunting for Atlantis beneath the waves. They were seeking the same knowledge Atlantis represents, wisdom encoded across time in temples, ruins, and manuscripts. Atlantis becomes a symbolic guidepost, pointing to lessons older than history itself. Even today, Atlantis captures our imagination. Books, films, and documentaries portray it as a lost utopia or sunken paradise, hiding secrets that could change everything. But perhaps the fascination is deeper. Atlantis represents the memory of civilizations lost to time, wisdom that was almost forgotten but survived in story and symbol. For the Knights Templar, this story may have held a subtle truth. The pursuit of a lost city was really a pursuit of knowledge, knowledge encoded in sacred sites, ancient scrolls, and rituals of civilizations that preceded their own. Atlantis may have been the echo of wisdom from Egypt, Mesopotamia, Phoenicia, even places older than those, whispering across the centuries to guide seekers like the Templars. Could the obsession with Atlantis actually be pointing us towards something far older? Something not lost beneath the waves, but preserved in stone, in symbols, and in the memory of humankind itself. Knowledge the Templars devoted their lives to seeking, protecting, and understanding. Long before cities, before kings, writing, agriculture, or even pottery, there was Göbekli Tepe. Discovered in southeastern Turkey and dated to roughly 9,600 BCE, Göbekli Tepe shattered everything modern archaeology thought it knew about the origins of civilization. At a time when humans were believed to be simple hunter-gatherers, small nomadic bands struggling merely to survive, someone was carving massive stone pillars, some weighing over 20 tons, and arranging them into precise circular enclosures. Each pillar is carved with animals, serpents, foxes, boars, birds, rendered with deliberate detail. These are not crude scratches, they are symbols, intentional, repeated, structured, even more striking. Many of the pillars are shaped like stylized human forms, complete with arms, hands, and belts. This suggests ritual, hierarchy, and identity, concepts that supposedly shouldn't exist yet. Göbekli Tepe predates Sumer, Egypt, Stonehenge, and even the invention of farming. In fact, evidence suggests agriculture may have arisen because people gathered to build and maintain this site, not the other way around. Some researchers have noted potential astronomical alignments within the enclosures. While debated, patterns hint at an awareness of celestial cycles, stars rising and setting, seasonal markers, perhaps even early understanding of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis over thousands of years. If true, this implies something radical, a civilization, or at least a tradition of knowledge, older than history itself. Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, preserved as if someone wanted it hidden, not destroyed. There are no signs of war, collapse, or disaster. It was sealed, intentionally. The Knights Templar lived nearly 12,000 years later, but they were drawn to the same question Göbekli Tepe forces us to ask: where did ancient knowledge originate? The Templars moved through lands where remnants of forgotten worlds still lingered: Anatolia, Syria, the Levant, regions layered with civilizations built atop older ones. While Göbekli Tepe itself was unknown in medieval times, the echo of its legacy was not. Knowledge travels, stories persist, symbols survive. The Templars sought ancient wisdom not because it was old, but because it was foundational. They believed there was a prime source, a moment when humanity understood the cosmos more clearly than we do now. If Göbekli Tepe proves that advanced knowledge existed before civilization, then who taught it, and why was it buried? When history officially begins, it begins with Sumer, around 3500 BCE, in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians appear almost fully formed, bringing with them writing, mathematics, law, astronomy, and complex religious systems. They did not ease into civilization, they arrived with it. Cuneiform writing records advanced calculations, star charts, calendars, and myths that speak of divine teachers, the Anunnaki, beings associated with the heavens who imparted knowledge to humanity. Whether symbolic or literal, the message is consistent. Knowledge was given, not discovered. The Sumerians tracked planetary movements with astonishing precision. Their numerical system, based on 60, is still used today in timekeeping and geometry. They recorded eclipses, solstices, and cycles of the moon and planets, knowledge that requires long-term observation across generations. Perhaps most striking are their flood myths, especially the Epic of Gilgamesh, which predates the biblical account of Noah by centuries. These stories speak of a world destroyed, knowledge preserved, and humanity reborn after catastrophe. This theme echoes again and again across cultures. Some scholars suggest that Sumerian symbols and mythic structures influenced later civilizations through trade routes, migrations, and oral traditions. Sacred knowledge didn't vanish, it traveled, encoded in temple layouts, star lore, mythological narratives, sacred numbers, and geometry. Now consider this from a medieval perspective. The Knights Templar operated during a time when classical texts were being rediscovered, translated, and circulated between Islamic scholars, Jewish mystics, and Christian orders. Ancient Sumerian knowledge itself wasn't known by name, but its echoes were everywhere, in astronomy, numerology, sacred architecture, and myth. What if the most dangerous knowledge isn't forbidden, but remembered? If the Templars encountered ancient records, symbols, or teachings preserved through Egyptian, Greek, or Middle Eastern traditions, they may not have known their true origin, but they would have recognized their power to reshape theology, power to challenge authority, power to suggest humanity's story was far older than Scripture allowed. Again I ask, what if the most dangerous knowledge isn't forbidden, but remembered? If Sumer was the beginning of written civilization, Egypt was the civilization of memory. To the ancient Egyptians, knowledge was not something to invent, it was something to preserve. Their temples and pyramids were not merely tombs or monuments. They were stone archives, encoding information through geometry, alignment, and symbol rather than words alone. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with extraordinary precision to true north, something modern builders struggle to achieve even today. The pyramids mirror stellar patterns, particularly the Orion constellation, long associated with rebirth, the afterlife, and the gods. Temples across Egypt align with solstices and equinoxes, allowing sunlight to illuminate inner sanctuaries on specific days of the year. This was not decorative, it was intentional. The Egyptians understood cosmic cycles, the movement of stars, the passage of ages, the repeating rise and fall of civilization. Some Egyptologists argue that mythological language was used deliberately to protect knowledge from misuse or erasure. In Egyptian tradition, wisdom came from a distant golden age, the 𝚑𝚑𝚎𝚘, the first time, when gods walked among humans and established order after chaos. This idea mirrors flood myths from Sumer and later Atlantis narratives recorded by Plato. Knowledge lost, then remembered. When the Knights Templar arrived in Egypt and the Holy Land centuries later, they encountered remnants of this symbolic language, temple ruins, sacred geometry, astronomical traditions preserved by Islamic scholars, and Greek philosophical texts descended from Egyptian sources. They would not have found a single hidden book labeled Ancient Truths. They would have found patterns, and patterns are far more dangerous, because patterns suggest continuity. They suggest inheritance. They suggest that civilization did not begin once, but many times. What if the pyramids weren't built to defy time, but to speak across it? Atlantis enters the story not as a discovery, but as a remembrance. Plato never claimed Atlantis was his own idea. In Timaeus and Critias, he tells us the story came from Egyptian priests, passed down through Solon, then preserved through generations. According to the account, Atlantis existed 9,000 years before Plato's time, placing it around 9,600 BCE, the same era as Göbekli Tepe. Plato describes Atlantis not just as a city, but as a powerful civilization with advanced knowledge, moral decline, and eventual destruction through natural catastrophe. The story ends abruptly, unfinished, as if deliberately left open. Many scholars argue that Plato used Atlantis as a moral allegory. Others believe it reflects a fragmented memory of real events, ancient floods, lost cultures, and the collapse of earlier civilizations at the end of the last ice age. What matters most is this: Plato treats Atlantis as ancient knowledge already old in his time. If Atlantis represents anything, it may not be a single location, but a placeholder for a forgotten chapter of human history, a compression of memory, a warning. For medieval scholars and orders like the Knights Templar, Plato was not fringe, he was foundational. His works were studied intensely, translated, debated, and revered. If the Templars believed that sacred knowledge predated biblical history, Plato's Atlantis would not have been dismissed as myth. It would have been a clue. If Atlantis was never meant to be found, what was it meant to remind us of? By now, a pattern has emerged. The Knights Templar did not appear in history as simple warriors. They rose suddenly, gained immense wealth, moved freely across borders, and answered to no king. They were accused, not of greed, but of knowing too much. Atlantis persists not because we have found it, but because we cannot forget it. It reappears in philosophy, esoteric traditions, secret societies, and modern speculation, not as a destination, but as a question. Göbekli Tepe shattered the timeline of civilization. Sumer preserved cosmic order in tablets. Egypt encoded memory in stone. Plato compressed something ancient into myth. These ideas keep colliding because they may be fragments of the same inheritance. Knowledge does not always disappear. Sometimes it hides inside symbols, myths, architecture, rituals, and stories designed to survive catastrophe. When one civilization falls, the knowledge migrates, carried by priests, scribes, philosophers, and later, secretive orders sworn to protect it. The Knights Templar may have been one such vessel, not keepers of a single relic, but followers of a knowledge lineage, a trail left by civilizations that understood cosmic cycles, precession, and the dangers of imbalance between power and wisdom. And here is the unsettling part. This knowledge seems to resurface during moments of instability, before collapses, before transformations, before humanity repeats the same mistakes. Atlantis falls. Civilizations reset. Knowledge survives. And then it waits. What if these stories return not to be solved, but to warn us? Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding is that the treasure was ever meant to be physical. Not a lost city beneath the sea, not gold hidden in temples, not relics buried in stone. The real treasure may be memory, the ability to recognize patterns across time, to see where civilizations went wrong. In the end, what fascinates me most isn't whether Atlantis sank or where the Templars walked. It's that knowledge, in its quiet, enduring way, travels through time, waiting for those who are curious, patient, and brave enough to notice it. Every myth, every stone, every star alignment is a whisper from the past, a reminder that what humanity has learned before, it can learn again. And perhaps the real adventure is not in finding answers, but in learning to see the patterns that have always been there. Until our paths cross again, stay curious, stay aware, and keep your eyes on the patterns hidden between myth, history, and the stars. Love, light, and cosmic blessings. Mystic Missy.